Did you know that in September 2023, European scientists made a startling discovery? They found a massive hole in the ozone layer above the South Pole. This ozone hole, which has been growing over the decades, is now one of the largest on record, roughly twice the size of Antarctica. The concerning part is that it could still expand. While ozone holes are typically a natural phenomenon, human activities and events like large volcanic eruptions can exacerbate the situation. Scientists are also worried that climate change might lead to new ozone holes in the coming years. This raises serious concerns about the healing of the ozone layer and its impact on life on Earth. Join us today as we delve into the alarming ozone hole that poses a potential threat to human life. And if you find this information valuable, remember to click on the subscribe button and like this video. It's the best way to support this channel. Ozone is a special gas made of 3 oxygen atoms that naturally exists in tiny amounts high up in the sky. You can find this ozone gas in something called the ozone layer, which is found between 15 and 30 kilometers above the Earth's surface in a part of the atmosphere called the stratosphere. This ozone layer is super important because it acts like an invisible shield, protecting all life on Earth. It shields living things from the harmful rays of the sun, called UV radiation. See, most of these harmful UV rays from the sun are stopped by the ozone layer, so they don't reach the Earth's surface. Without this protective ozone layer, life on our planet would be very different or might not have developed the way it has. Now, back in the 1970s, scientists noticed something worrying. They saw that human activities were causing big gaps or holes in the ozone layer. These holes were mainly due to the use of certain chemicals called chlorofluorocarbons, CFCs. Just like how the sea ice around Antarctica grows and shrinks with the seasons, the ozone hole above this continent also goes through a similar cycle. It usually starts growing in August, reaches its largest size around October, and then starts to get smaller again as Antarctica's summertime begins. But something unusual has been happening in recent years. The ozone hole has been closing later than usual, and this has puzzled scientists. One reason for this change might be the massive bushfires in Australia, which released a lot of smoke that destroyed ozone. Back in 1987, when scientists raised the alarm about these ozone holes, the world took action. They created something called the Montreal Protocol to protect the ozone layer. This protocol phased out the production of harmful substances, and it worked. The ozone holes got smaller in the years after controlling these ozone-depleting gases. But in 2020, 2021, and 2022, the ozone hole surprised scientists by being deeper and lasting longer than expected. In 2023, it got even bigger, and scientists are trying to figure out why. They've been using a special satellite called the Copernicus Sentinel-5P to keep an eye on this. It was launched in 2017 and can measure gases in the atmosphere and spot air pollution better than ever before. According to observations from this satellite, the ozone hole in August 2023 was over 6 million square miles, and by September 16, 2023, it had grown to around 10 million square miles, making it one of the largest holes of its kind. The biggest ozone hole ever seen happened back in 2000. It was huge, covering nearly 11 million square miles or 28.4 million square kilometers. Scientists think that the unusual ozone patterns we're seeing now might have something to do with a big undersea volcano called Tonga. This volcano exploded with a force stronger than more than 100 Hiroshima bombs in January 2022. When it erupted, it created the tallest eruption plume ever recorded. This volcano's aftermath is like uncharted territory for scientists. No previous volcanic eruption in recorded history has pumped so much water into the atmosphere. Scientists are still trying to figure out exactly how this eruption is affecting the ozone hole. It's an ongoing area of research. Ozone holes happen when it's super cold, like at minus 78 degrees Celsius or minus 108 degrees Fahrenheit. At that extreme cold, a special kind of cloud called polar stratospheric clouds forms. These icy clouds turn certain chemicals into compounds that destroy ozone. These harmful chemicals have chlorine and bromine in them. They become active in the frigid vortex above the South Pole. Back in the late 20th century, these chemicals were produced in large quantities because people used things like CFCs in refrigerators and aerosol cans. The water vapor from the Tonga volcano eruption might have caused more polar stratospheric clouds to form. This is where the chlorine and bromine can react and speed up ozone depletion. The increase in water vapor caused by the volcano eruption has had a cooling effect in the stratosphere, which isn't good for ozone levels. Scientists predicted that the eruption, which released 50 million tons of water vapor into the atmosphere, would impact the protective ozone layer in the years following. But it's not just the volcano. There are other things at play too. Solar flares and coronal mass ejections release charged particles and plasma that also damage the ozone layer. Some of this damage comes from something called isolated proton auroras. These are caused by charged particles and plasma from solar flares and coronal mass ejections, and they've been nibbling away at the ozone layer. So, while humans are usually responsible for a lot of ozone depletion, space-related events like these can also contribute to the problem. There was a really big gap in the ozone layer, almost 250 kilometers wide. This hole opened right below where an aurora, a pretty light in the sky, happened. Surprisingly, most of the ozone in that area disappeared in just about an hour and a half. The scientists didn't expect so much ozone to disappear because of this event. Another reason the ozone hole got bigger has to do with wildfires. There were really bad fires during the summer, and the hot, dry weather made them worse. These fires happened from late 2019 to early 2020, and they burned down a lot of eucalyptus forests in Australia. The smoke and ash from the fires covered Australia for months. In a new study, researchers from the United States and China found that the smoke from these wildfires had a chemical reaction that made the ozone gas break down more. This reaction made the ozone hole over Antarctica grow by more than 2 million square kilometers or 770,000 square miles. Scientists also think that the changing climate might be making the ozone layer thinner. Even though the air close to the Earth's surface is getting warmer, the layer higher up in the sky, called the stratosphere, is actually getting colder. This colder stratosphere makes it easier for ozone to get destroyed. This year, there was something called El Niño, which messed with the temperatures around the North and South poles. But we're not entirely sure how this is connected to the ozone hole. Even though the ozone hole sometimes seems to get bigger, overall it's getting smaller. According to something called the Montreal Protocol, and because we're using fewer chemicals that harm the ozone, scientists believe that the ozone layer around the world should get back to normal by about 2050 or 2060. But some scientists are worried that climate change might slow down this recovery. Although we don't fully understand the link between climate change and the ozone layer yet, we're interested in hearing your thoughts on this topic. Feel free to leave your opinions in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.